this up earlier, but as I mentioned, Safer Choice is one of the programs that I manage for Region 7. As you can see, Safer Choice is all about safer chemistry. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So the Safer Choice program is designed to provide primarily safer chemicals and cleaners choices to consumers and institutions. And it's all about safer chemistry, as I mentioned, to help consumers, to help businesses and institutions find products that are safer for human health and the environment. The program is strictly voluntary. It leverages EPA's experience in this area, which is more than 15 years of reviewing products from a chemical safety perspective. The program began as one called Design for the Environment, off to the right there, the little globe there, that I can't remember when it actually started. Jim may have more history than I do, but it evolved in probably about a 2017-18 timeframe to the new logo you see here called Safer Choice. And this was done after a lot of consumer interviews and such to find something that would resonate a little more closely with consumers. So that's how the program came into being. Next slide. So this is actually a family of labels. There are 3 variants. The first is the one that you'll see if you go to your grocery stores and the like, you know, for consumer application with a little house on top. The one in the middle is an optional label used for industrial and institutional use, the rounded top. And then the one to the right is one that's called fragrance-free. And that one's probably worth talking about just a little bit. Fragrance-free means just that. There's no masking agents or artificial fragrances added. A lot of consumer products, you may have seen the term unscented. And what that really means usually is that some sort of masking agent has been added to counteract the strong chemical odors. Now, there really isn't necessarily mean it's any safer. So the fragrance-free product label is specifically designed for things like asthmatics and folks that would be very sensitive to odors to provide something that would be safer for them. Next slide, please. So what does the label mean? It provides trusted assurance from the EPA that the product contains safer ingredients that meet stringent criteria and requirements from the EPA, that they'll be safer for families, pets, workers, communities, and the environment. And most importantly, that it's been reviewed also from a performance perspective, that we make sure that the product will perform at equal or better levels than competing commercial products that are not part of the program. The idea here is to provide a appealing label that consumers can trust, no chemistry book required, to use quickly in making their purchasing decisions. Next slide, please. We had a survey back in March of 2018, more than 2,000 applicants, and we found that 39% of consumers had reported familiarity with the program, which is pretty good considering the program had only been around for a couple of years at that point. So 38% is of the consumers say that they would have seen the Safer Choice label on store shelves as well. Next slide, please. So of that population, 79% of consumers responded they would use the Safer Choice label to help inform their purchasing decision. Of that percentage, 85% were parents and 81% millennials. So that gives you a pretty good idea of the folks that are really interested in safer chemistry and safer chemicals in general. Next slide, please. So what's behind the label? In order to meet the standard, every chemical ingredient is reviewed for human health and environmental safety. And the product level requirements also include performance, as we mentioned earlier, also packaging. We make sure they're using, environmentally sustainable packaging, and ingredient disclosure as well. If the product passes a somewhat rigorous testing process, it's covered under a partnership agreement between the manufacturer and the EPA, which is good for 3 years. Subject to annual audits where we go through, we make sure that nothing's changed in the formulation year over year. Next slide. Next slide, please. You still there, Nancy? Next slide. Okay, while we're waiting for the slide to change there, there's a question about the audit process. So what goes on there is we actually employ some third-party organizations. There's, I think, 2 or 3 that's approved. And first, the formulator or manufacturer would provide the product to that third party, and they go through a pretty rigid, set of criteria to make sure all the ingredients that they're using. There's a list called SKIL, it stands for, I think, Safer Chemical Ingredients list, that we'll talk about later, that the EPA maintains, that they can go out and make sure that the ingredients that they use in their formulation come from that list. And if everything looks good, and they go through an iterative process between the third party and the manufacturer, the product goes forward to an EPA scientist who does a final review. And then after that final review is completed, we enter into basically a contract, if you will, to use the label over 3 years. Okay, I think we're past where we want to be. Can you back up just a little bit?
Sure. Sorry about that. It could have been it just could have been internet lag. So let's see. We should be on slide 8 of 21.
Okay. So, well, we'll just take it where we're at here. This is to find the safer choice products. This is the link there at the top gives you a place you can go to find all of the products. It's updated every 2 weeks. We've got more than 2,000 there. Over 700 are consumer and retail, and the remainder are industrial and institutional. Most of the products are going to be cleaning products, detergents, all-purpose cleaners, and the like, with the potential to expand into other areas such as adhesive, lubricants, and so on. Next slide.
Did it advance?
Okay.
There we go.
There we go. So there's 3 broad categories that the cleaners and like fall into: household cleaning, things like degreasers, dishwashers, detergent, odor removers. Health and beauty is the second category, things like shampoos, conditioners, and the like. And automotive and outdoor, athletic field paint, ranging from that to de-icers to all kinds of things. Next slide, please. So at this point, we're going to do a little bit of a pop quiz, and I've got one transition to go ahead and click again. And the question here, just to see if you're awake here, are pesticides included in safer choice products? If you think you know the answer, go ahead and provide that in chat, and we'll see what everybody says. So far, I have 2 no's, 1 yes, 3 no's. Okay. Another, I don't think so. All right. Well, if you answered no, you are correct. I kind of threw you a curveball there, and I really hadn't provided that answer to you. And, the short answer is that safer choice label cannot be used in pesticide products or any product that makes a kill claim, such as disinfectants, sanitizers, and other antimicrobial products. By definition, pesticides are designed to kill organisms, and according to the FIFRA law, we can't make comparative safety claims. The safer choice label would constitute that claim. Now, getting past all the legalese, that being said, the EPA recognizes that there are varying degrees of toxicity in pesticides, some of which pose a lesser risk to human health and the environment. Accordingly, the EPA allows antimicrobial products to be certified under the Design for Environment label. I showed you a picture of earlier, the one with the little globe. The DFE program is also run by the Safer Choice team, and it uses the same criteria when evaluating antimicrobial products for the label. And then there's a label down there, a link there at the bottom of the slide to that particular website. Gives you more information if you're curious. Next slide, please. We also have a pretty nifty product finder you can use, the link again at the top of the page, to find safer choice products. There's a search bar you see at the top there. It has a pretty free-form box that you can put in whatever you want. It could be a company name, it could be a product, whatever, and it'll search through. and sort for you. To the right, there are some filters. You can filter by home or business application. You can also put in product categories like those we talked about earlier. In this case, the example is dish soaps. And then off to the left side there, the middle box, we also have a filter for fragrance-free products and products with outdoor use as well. Each time you make a change, the list there at the bottom, you kind of have to watch, it will change as well. So what you want to do is whenever you enter something is scroll to the bottom and you just keep looking and you'll find there's up to 6 tabs or pages. I mean, with over 2,000 products, and it could be a potential quite a few there. So, but it will do all the sorting for you. It's kind of a nifty way of looking through and getting products and categories of interest. Next slide. We also have a graphically oriented tool that's kind of nifty you can use. Example here, if you hover your mouse over the school there, it will pop up and say school. You click on it, it'll take you to the actual link of the schools. You won't on this actual slide, but also the one at the top where she's got her there, that's for home application. Over to the right where you got the hotel, that would be for, you know, hotels and lodging venues. Below that, we have one for business. Oops, lost the slide there. And then over to the left for athletic, you can see the soccer field with the stadium there for athletic venues. So each time you would click on that particular area, it would take you to a pre-sorted list of chemicals that would fit in those categories. All right, next slide. Okay, we have I think we might have missed a slide there. Yes. Okay, I guess we're okay. One more. All right, so the program participants, we have a lot of different categories. We have chemical manufacturers, product manufacturers, retailers, and health and environmental advocacy groups. And I won't go through all the names there. We're not supposed to advertise for anybody in particular, but you can see a lot of big name companies there that take the program very seriously and are great participants for us. Next slide, please. We also have a program called the Partner of the Year Award, and this is the way that we recognize all of our great program participants that we have. And then annually we try to recognize all the leadership contributions and achievements. The award is given in 5 categories. They're listed there below: formulators and product manufacturers, purchasers and distributors, retailers, supporters, and innovators. Next slide. So how do you apply? At the top of the screen, again, is a link that would give you a reference for that. Anybody that's a participant in the program in good standing is eligible to apply. You would notify, there's a link there to the program, the contract agency we use to support that. And the EPA group administrator, if you will, for this particular program is Linda Rutch, and that's her email address right there at headquarters. Each year, there's a recognition ceremony that's held virtually. There's a question there for hospital safer choice references. Yeah, you're probably right. You're not going to see as much because of the kill factor issue. You would probably want to look for, you know, antimicrobials would be the design for the environment program. But each year there's a recognition ceremony, and last year, for the first time, we had to hold it virtually due to the pandemic. And that was held on September 24th of last year. We had 18 winners across the U.S. I'm very happy to report that we had an in-region winner, which is Prosoco of Lawrence, Kansas, and they manufacture chemicals cleaning solutions for businesses is what they do. Next slide. So I'll take a little bit of time here to talk about green cleaning by state. And I'd like to just make sure that you understand this is my list I put together, and if you might find things that are inconsistent or incorrect, feel free to interrupt and let me know if you know something that I could add to this. I'd be love to add it. Anyway, my findings is that there is a policy or implemented in Iowa, there's a code. I won't go into the numbers there, but the law requires public schools and other state institutions to purchase only environmentally preferable cleaning products or to opt out of the requirement through a school board vote. The law directs the state also to provide information on environmentally preferable cleaning products. And down below, you see the link to the code itself, and then below that is the link from the, what the state has done in terms of collecting information and on environmentally preferable cleaning solutions. Next slide. And here is some example applications in Iowa. We've got 3 colleges or 1 university, Iowa State University. Just to talk about this a little bit, you see that their Safer Choice does not show up there, and the third-party eco labels included. There are other programs, Green Seal and Eco Logo are 2 of the bigger ones that you see. And one of the primary reasons I think you don't see Safer Choice on this is this came out in 2010, and that was really before Safer Choice had come into being. And I think if you saw this list updated today, you would definitely see a Safer Choice as an option. The DFE link and for Iowa Public School links districts below is actually designed for the environment, and that would be the original program before Safer Choice. Next slide. In Nebraska, I know of no statewide mandates, and correct me if I'm wrong, but just to give a voluntary example, the University of Nebraska at Omaha has an informal purchase requirement for Green Seal products for janitorial application, and there's the link below that for that. In Kansas, I know of no known state mandates or specific examples. Nancy, you may have something from K-State that I'm not aware of. Perhaps Charles, you have something that I don't know of, but I was not able to find anything real quickly looking through. Next slide. Okay, in Missouri, there was a mandate that came out in 2008, and that was a revised statute, Chapter 161 from the State Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. They adopted this in 2009 as a voluntary program. There's a link to it below, and there's some example applications again in the University of Missouri, Kansas City, Washington University, and St. Louis. And if you're looking for case studies, if you look at those website links, they'll provide you more information if you're looking for something to, use an example in a program you might be developing on your own. Next slide. So how can you help? From an institutional perspective, a lot of folks don't really realize or think that indoor air really could be more polluted than outdoor air. Probably more attention to this has been garnered with the pandemic we have now. But at any rate, workers and the public are often exposed to harsh cleaners and chemicals, and using products with a Safer Choice label avoids that. So you can ask what cleaning products your institution buys and direct administrators to the Safer Choice link. On a personal level, next slide, there are some social media links. Hashtag EPA Safer Choice, Twitter and Facebook is EPA Safer Choice. I'd encourage you to investigate any green purchasing procurement web resources, such as some of the examples I've provided there, and share them with your purchasers. Finally, look for Safer Choice labeled products when you shop. If you find something that works for you, be sure to share it with others. That's all I have formally today. Any questions?
There were some questions in the chat and at the very beginning. So Jean, I think you asked a question, Linnell did too, about fragrance-free and VOCs. Let's see, if you guys can verbalize those questions, that would be great.
Yeah, I think you would find that they are VOC free. If you're curious about the chemistry itself, I'm not a chemist now, I'm an engineer, but if you go out of slideshow mode here, Nancy, and go to the very end of the presentation, slide 23, I believe it is.
I just have 21.
Okay, whatever the last slide is, there's an addendum.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, and that, let me just close chat here for a second. Addendum will show you the skill list. That's where you go. You find all the safer ingredients on the skill that I talked about. Also, you find more detail on the fragrance-free products list. And there's some great tools here as well. There's an EPA Healthy Schools program link, and there's a really good program from ISSA that I think has a certification process for green cleaning you can go through. It's evolved over the years, so I think it's still there as far as I know.
John,
Okay.
this is Jean Waters, and the question I had on fragrance-free was about the legal restrictions, if there are any, for it. Because I know a lot of times with food products, I learned recently that peanut butter is a specific designation, and if it doesn't have a certain quantity of peanuts in the peanut butter, they have to call it peanut butter spread, for example.
Okay.
So do you know, can anybody use the words fragrance-free, or is that a legal definition? That was my question.
It's really just a kind of a marketing thing. And you see it commonly out there. And the reason why I wanted to bring it up is, it's really kind of deceptive, because usually what it just means is they put some kind of masking agent in there, so you can't smell the chemical odor. So I mean, we
need to see both the safer choice label and the words fragrance-free to be sure. Is that right?
Yeah, it would say fragrance-free. It's that third option on the label back earlier in the presentation. It'll say specifically at the top of it to the left, fragrance-free. And when you do the search, you can actually search. There's one of the drop-down click on options is fragrance-free that you can use as well.
So it's got the little, and I've seen these at Walmart. I just bought, to my knowledge, one of my first safer choice labeled cleaners, and I should have brought it and shown everyone, but I didn't do that. But yeah, so you would see this little icon up here, a little wording.
Right. I think I covered there was a question about the audit process. I think I covered that. Let's see what other questions we had.
And while you look at that, obviously we work with industry. And so hotels, retail stores, and then community facilities like schools, and trying to think of some other groups of community facilities. So they are all candidates for this.
Yeah, hospitality industry would be one as well.
Yeah, but we're not necessarily seeing it in manufacturing or any of those areas at this point in time.
That would fall into the business category. Manufacturers would certainly be, I mean, they would, they use cleaning, chemicals just like anybody else, and usually they purchase them, from formulators who do that specifically for businesses, like a company like Proxico.
Right. Okay. Any other questions for John? If not, John, I want to thank you. I learned a lot. That was really, really good. And I know this program's been around for a couple of years. We're trying to figure out applications for it. I know that there is and David Carter knows more about this, but there's a healthy school initiative that EPA does. Is there an effort to get this program integrated into that?
Yeah, the addendum has a link to that program. It's the second one in there, I think, to the Healthy Schools program as well.
Okay.
And yeah, it's a part of that. I mean, Safer Choice is big enough. It's kind of a program in and of itself, but they're definitely linked.
Is it, John, this is Linnell Ladd, is it part of the chemical research program that at EPA?
Certainly the people that run it and work with it are scientists, and they are involved, yes, with chemical safety, and they're very, very capable people. I can go to whenever I have a question. They're very good at, getting answers to things. But I'd be glad, if you have issues that come up on safer choice or related chemical safety, green chemistry issues, I'll be glad to help you with that and find out answers. I think that from time to time I have responded to this forum to a thing or two on that, but if new things come up, I'm glad to take those on.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, John. We appreciate